Good day, ladies and gentlemen. This is my final part of the retainer sacrifice for this document. So I'm going to go ahead and read this, and that's it for me with this particular document. I have two others that I might read, but anyone who's interested in actually challenging me, they should put together some sort of presentation, and they can come on the platform and challenge me if they wish. So another important point is the custom of bed burials. There is an un-Egyptian this is an un-Egyptian form of burial which has been practiced from Kerma to the early kings of the 25th dynasty until it was abandoned, first for royal burials at the time of Taharqa and then by lesser members of the elite. So this is all talking about what they call in Nubia today. It then reappeared in post-Meriatic graves at Meroe and also at Balana and Kustal. Furthermore, the Royal North Cemetery of Meroe was, as we have seen, exclusively royal, whereas the elite and even the queens were buried in the West Cemetery at Balana and Kustal. The royal tumuli and smaller graves are in the same cemetery as has been the case at Kerma. In fact, the only indisputable evidence for an ideological link between the kings of Balana and their Mauryatic pre- predecessors are the silver crowns in Mauryatic that is Egyptianizing style found in several of the Balana royal tombs. While these are obviously potent symbols of kingship, give me 1 second. I didn't even check to see if the thing is sharing. Let me see if it's sharing before I start, because I just started reading. I go to sharing. Let's go back and finish reading it off. And anyone who's in the chat, let me know you're there. If you want to challenge, bring forth a presentation, and we'll talk about it. While these are obviously potent symbols of kingship, they have in fact little to do with the funerary customs per se, and in this respect, their significance has probably been overrated. It seems more likely to me, therefore, that Adams is right when he says that many aspects of the post-Mariatic burial complex seem to represent a deliberate break with the tradition and a revival of much older pre-pharaonic practices. Apart from these general considerations, there is also the actual location of the bodies of the sacrifice victims in the Balana tombs to take into account. Some of them were found in the underground complex, some even within the royal burial chamber itself. Thus, in one case, the king's body was placed on a canopied wooden bier, below which were placed bronze and silver vessels for his immediate use. He was dressed in his royal regalia, and weapons for his protection were left leaning against the foot of the bier, and at its head lay the sacrificed bodies of a male slave and an ox. Clearly, this sacrifice man was there to serve the king in the afterlife. That this should be the body of an enemy prisoner slaughtered in the course of a triumphant celebration seems wholly unbelievable to me. Lenoble, Lenoble has interpreted the presence of the ox along the same lines, viz., as part of unright, their confirmation, the Chamis de la Famille Royale, whose main function was de célébrer à des adapteurs la idéologie royaliste des successions. What that means, I don't know, and I'm sorry for butchering the people's language. Even if one accepts this, however, this does not necessarily exclude the possibility that an ox placed in the king's burial chamber was supposed to be of use to him in the afterlife, as were the human victims buried with the king. The same holds true for the men buried with the king's saddled horses, which were clearly not just there for triumphal ostentation, but ready to be used and therefore needing the continued assistance of groomers. Batrawi, in his report on the skeletal material found at Balana and Kustal, observed that it is a most significant fact that the animals buried inside the tombs were invariably edible, while all the animals found in the ramp and pit are usually used for carrying, riding, or hunting. Retainer sacrifice is a custom which can be found in many societies in a variety of times and places, and in many forms. There are, however, almost also some common features. The custom occurs only in developed root crop cultures, not in more primitive societies, and only in societies with centralized power in the person of a king or chief who has control over the lives of his retainers and who is seen as having a special relationship with the supernatural, not in more equal, equalitarian societies. It is also more frequent in territorial states than in city states. Finally, there appears to be a correlation between retainer sacrifice and other forms of human sacrifice. It occurs only in societies where human beings are regularly sacrificed to the gods. And when cultic human sacrifice is no longer practiced, retainer sacrifice also dies out. All of these factors are at work in early dynastic Kemet, a developed agricultural society governed by a powerful divine king who had recently established a centralized territory state. After the incep- incipient city states of late pre dynastic times, after the first dynasty, the practice of retainer sacrifice appears to have died out quickly, and it is probably no coincidence that only pictorial evidence we have of cultic human sacrifice dates from the same period. A scene found on a few early dynastic wooden labels shows a kneeling figure apparently with his hands tied behind his back, being stabbed in the chest by an officiant holding a bowl to catch the blood. On the best preserved labels, the context is clearly on the best preserved bowl, the context is clearly a ritual, a royal religious ceremony, but the status of the person killed, a willing victim or prisoner of war, is unknown. That this is a real event, or not just a symbolic representation of the king that is so often depicted in later tomb reliefs, is made likely by the fact that it is not the king who is shown killing the victim, but a non-royal officiant. This scene is never depicted again after the first dynasty, and cultic human sacrifice appears to have become a highly exceptional event in later times. So I think what they're saying here is they are not sure if this is a real event or not. Let me read it again. A scene found on a few early dynastic wooden labels shows a kneeling man, apparently with his hands tied behind his back, being stabbed in the chest by an officiant holding a bowl to catch the blood. On the best preserved label, the context is clearly a royal religious sacrifice, but the status of the person killed, a willing victim or prisoner of war, is unknown. That this is a real event, or not just a symbolic representation of the king, that is so often depicted in later temple reliefs, is made likely by the fact that it is not the king who is shown killing the victim, but a non-royal officiant. This scene is never depicted again after the first dynasty, and cultic human sacrifice appears to have become a highly exceptional event. There is then no indisputable evidence of retainer sacrifice in ancient Egypt after the first dynasty, but as Trigger rightfully remarks, the ethical and socioeconomic factors that have resulted in the abandonment of this custom in the course of social evolution was no less worthy of investigation than is the custom itself. So, why was the practice of retainer sacrifice discontinued after the first dynasty? This is an intriguing problem for which there is no easy solution. It is usually assumed that in Nubia, the practice of retainer sacrifice was initially abandoned after the current period because of the political and cultural colonization of the area by the Egyptians who had not practiced retainer sacrifice for well over a millennium. The revival of the custom after the end of the Egyptian domination and its aftermath under the Egyptianized Kushite rulers tends to confirm this. The first abandonment of the practice appears to have been the result of the introduction of Christianity in Nubia, although as late as the 11th century AD, the Arabic writer Abd al-Aziz al-Bukhari still describes a royal burial in a 2 meters grave with sacrifice retainers, which is strikingly similar to those found at Balana and Kusta. For early dynastic Egypt, however, no such external influence can be found unless one assumes no such external influence can be found unless one wants to assume, as some scholars have suggested, that the custom is rooted in a distinct Upper Egyptian culture and that it was abandoned under the civilizing influence of the North. One of the main obstacles to our understanding of the process, which led to the discontinuation of the practice in early dynastic Egypt, is that we know very little about the status and life of the sacrifice victims. That they were supposed to serve the king in the hereafter seems reasonably certain, but had they also been his servants when he was still alive? In other words, were the king's own servants sacrificed? This is usually assumed and is perhaps the most likely option. But it is also possible that the victims were selected from among the chief families of the elite or contributed by them from among their servants. This would make it a collective form of sacrifice, a symbol of group unity, emphasizing the social bonds of the participants, the shared belief that by sacrificing some of their servants, they contribute to the king's continued existence in the hereafter, and thereby to the prosperity of the state and their loyalty to the king's successor. Apart from these ideological components, however, such a practice, like all forms of conspicuous consumption, or indeed like any sacrifice, also invokes an important economic factor. For although, as John Baines put it somewhat apodic- apodictically, life was cheap in most pre modern societies, and this was a striking example of that cheapness. Such a statement does not take into account the economic value of servants may have represented to their owners, even at the heart of primitive religious ideology. And such a basically important phenomenon as sacrifice, notions of rationality and prudent calculation enter. And the sacrifice of a servant does not only dispatch an easily replaceable human body to the other world, but also deprives the surviving community of his professional skills and experience. The retainer burials excavated by Emery at demonstrate that, Saqqara demonstrate that these people were not mere menial laborers, but specialized servants such as craftsmen, painters, potters, sailors, etc., who were buried with the particular tools of their trade. The precious items of lapis lazuli and ivory recently found subsidiary graves at Aha's funerary enclosure at Abydos point in the same direction, with the establishment of a centralized state and the growing demand for luxury goods and services. The elite may well have started to think about more economical ways to meet their ritual obligations to the deceased king and to serve God without losing touch with Mammon. I don't know what that has to do with ancient Kemet. Like they just threw that in there. These considerations are equally pertinent if, as it seems likely, the sacrifice retainers by the deceased king's own servants for their debts would then deprive his successor's royal workshop of their expertise. Such economic considerations may have been strengthened by development during the late First Dynasty, where retainer sacrifice no longer appears to have been an exclusively royal prerog- prerogative. John Baines has drawn attention to a potential conflict between the idea that the prosperity of the land depended on the deceased king's destiny, which was presumably enhanced by the sacrifice of his retainers, and the position of his successors as guarantor of the country's well being. This may be so, but such a conflict would not have been resolved by abandoning the custom of retainer sacrifice. A similar conflict may have conceivably a similar conflict may conceivably have existed in later times when an incredible amount of luxury goods for the king's life and the hereafter were amassed in his tomb, but no human beings were included. Moreover, this would only work if one assumes that the absence of buried retainers in his tomb made the deceased king powerless, and this can hardly have been the intention in views of the later substitution of sacrifice retainers by depictions of servants, and the activities in tombs and mortuary temple reliefs. A conflict there was, but it was between the perceived interest of the deceased king and the earthly economic interests of his survivors. In the end, the latter outweighed the former. I would suggest then that socioeconomic rather than ideological factors responsible for the gradual decline of the number of sacrifice retainers after the reign of Jeddah and the eventual discontinuation of the custom after the First Dynasty. Ideological justification for this abandonment in terms of inviolability vi- violate inviolability of human life probably followed later. In the age of the great pyramid builders, the conspicuous consumption of human life was replaced by other potent symbols of royal status and authority. Although according to the folklore in the Westcott Papyrus quoted at the beginning of this article, King Cheops still had to be reminded by one of his subjects that the life of the noble cattle was not cheap. So that is the end of this, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back a little bit to the part about the depiction so I could read the source of where that came from. All right, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second. Let me go back. Give me 1 second. All right. All right. Give me 1 second. So this is 60 footnote number 64. So let's see. Wilkinson's early dynastic Egypt, 266, 267. So let me see if I could get this to show you the depiction. I give me 1 second. Let me see if I can get it. Oh shit! Sorry. I want to see if I could show you this depiction. Right, ladies and gentlemen. Big up to my brother Logic. I see my brother Logic in the building. So, what's up? I'm going to see if I could find the depiction and go over it to see if we can see what it looks like and how valid it is. Give me 1 second. Okay. I think I got it here. So it's on page. The pages it said 266 and 267, 82. So let me go to the page and see if I could actually find it, and maybe you could go over it. Give me 1 second, people. I see Logic is in the building, so I guess he's looking to mount. I guess he's looking to do. I would assume he's looking to do a presentation to come back at me probably at some point. Give me 1 second. Let me look at this figure and see what it looks like so I can show you guys what it looks like. Peace to everybody in the chat. You can definitely, I think I'm going to put the link in or not. I'm not sure. Let me just show this and then I might put the link in. think I'm reading it wrong. Let me go back and look at it because I want to get this right. Page 266, figure 8 2. Give me a second. Let me see if I can find it. If not, I'll come back to it because it's not looking like I'm not seeing it. All right, give me 1 second. Let me look for the figure because this is a digital copy and it might be a little further up. So give me 1 second, people. Figure 8 2 is what it is. So I'm gonna show you what it looks like. Let's see if it's a flimsy source or if it's a good source. Right. By the time you could get it ready, because I think I'm gonna open up the chat for you guys to come in. If anybody wants to come in to talk about it. Okay. Okay. I don't know why I'm not finding it, but I think I think I had to take some time to look at it. So I'm gonna put the link in the chat to see if anybody wants to come in and talk about it because we got a couple of people in the building. Did I do that right? Ladies and gentlemen, give me 1 second. I'm gonna put it on mute. I gotta do something, so give me 1 second and I'll be right back. Yeah, people, I'm back. Let me put the link in the chat to see if anybody wants to come in. All right, there's the link. If you want to come in, it's not a problem. I'm gonna go and pin it to the top, and we'll see. I'll give you 2 minutes if anybody wants to come in. Shoot the breeze. If not, I'm out of here. So I don't want to be on here whole day running my blast. All right, so it's pinned to the top of the chat on YouTube. So let's see who's gonna come in, if anyone. I read that, and well, it seems to be definitive that this thing did definitely happen for sure. But I'm gonna disagree, and I'm gonna show you why I disagree. Yeah, Logic, what's up?
Yo,
Talk to me, Logic, because I know you got a lot to say. So talk to me.
what's up, bro? I didn't hear much of your presentation. I've actually watched I've watched all the videos that you've done on human sacrifice so far. Have you moved at all in your position?
Well, it seems that they're given definitively. To me, the paper has definitively talked about people sacrificing themselves to be with the king. So I'm with that part, but I think when they talking about other people, people being killed, the language is a little iffy for me. Possibly, probably.
Well,
It sounds like they do, but it sounds to me like they're halfway in between on people actually killing people. But
and that's a good observation, right? So because I believe from the articles that I've looked at, And I'd say it's probably somewhere in a number of about four or five. It's not like it's super extensive or nothing like that. But in the ones that I've looked at, the topic is about how they died, right? Because so the how them dying actually isn't so relevant to them being retainers, right? So, and this is what I mean by that. Even if they gave their own life willingly, like the purpose of their death is what makes them retainers, not how they died, right? It
I
doesn't matter if they killed themselves. It doesn't matter
hold on,
if
but hold
it.
on, logic. I'm just saying to me, I'm only convinced that the retainer sacrifices, where they talk about people killing themselves, they seem to be pretty sure about that. But in this article, when they're talking about people being killed to be retainer sacrifices, the language is not sounding too positive in terms of them knowing that. It sounds like they're just drawing a conclusion that possibly and probably, they're not saying definitely it happened. So that is where I am with it. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to write my views on this in a small paper and then I'm going to present it. So don't be too quick to jump the gun on it. Let me
So
actually finish. Let me actually finish what I'm going to do, and
no,
then you.
you're good, bro. I just want to ask you a question, right? So
Yes, sir.
have you seen where they would put a meal in the tomb? Have you seen that?
Well, yes. They put meals. They put a lot of the pharaoh's worldly possessions. But that
Would
was
you consider that meal a sacrifice?
no. I mean, well, I know that I know that they clearly did kill animals and bring them to the tomb. But that obviously that was symbolic. They wouldn't think that he would
So
eat it.
okay, and I could be messing this up, but I'm trying to say it in terms of an example, right? Because it's the purpose of the meal is what
No,
makes it.
no, no.
Look, hear what I'm saying. Hear what I'm saying.
Okay, okay,
So just like the other items in the tomb, they're in the tomb for the use in the afterlife, right? That they're not in the tomb for decoration. They're in the tomb to serve their religious purpose, right? So all the items in the tomb are for the purpose of the person to use in the afterlife.
okay.
There isn't an item in there that's not
Okay,
for that.
I don't disagree with you, but I think we have to understand that this is purely symbolic because they didn't think that the fire was going to use all of those things in the afterlife, so to speak. It was a more symbolic gesture, and obviously they would have sacrificed animals. I don't have a problem with that.
Well,
I'm not. I'm not.
what
I'm not.
item are you suggesting is in there that was not for his use?
No, no. I am saying yes, but I think that was purely symbolic. I don't think that they thought the fire was going to actually eat the meal. I don't think that they thought he was actually going to eat the meal. He was actually going to ride the horse. He was actually going to sit on the throne. I don't think that they
But
thought that.
so you think that they actually did not think that they would become Osiris? You thought they was playing when they said that?
No, but what you're doing, logic, is you're
No, no,
mixing
no.
up two.
I'm no, no. So
No, no, no.
no.
But
So
you're
no.
mixing up two things. You're
I'm
mixing
not
up two.
Joey. I'm not mixing it up.
Hold on, logic.
I'm saying they're being religious.
But
They're
let me
being
explain
religious
something.
because they actually believe it, right? It's like
Let me
nobody.
ex- but let me explain something to you. It's a difference
Mhm.
between saying you're going to become what's considered a non-physical being, and of course, but then you have to realize if you don't know, they were already compared and considered to be a divinity before they died, so that didn't happen after death. They already had titles such as Nefer Netcher, which according to scholars say the good God, but or the good Netcher, and titles such as Nebtar Jesher, which was also used for Anpu, or who you know as Anubis. So they had these divine titles before they died. They didn't have to die to become divine. They were treated that way in life. And that is why I
Would,
say
would,
you're making a poor comparison between the Nasut Bidi and other people. He was the highest of the high as far as political and spiritual authority. There was no one higher. So you
Right.
can't make that comparison. There, it has never been a judgment scene for an Nasut Bidi ever. So we know that they obviously did not have to be judged. There's no judgment scene for them. So they were already divine, and they already they already were considered to going to be with what you call gods anyway. So that's a bad
I think
comparison.
I think no no
You
no.
can't
I think that you're overcomplicating the definition of sacrifice here. Because it all happens in religious context. So you're right, there is going to be some symbolism attached to it, right? So like let's look at the Christians. Even today, Christians actually believe that when they die, that they go to heaven and all those other things, right? They are Christians because they believe it, right? So when you're talking about the king and him and his transformation to becoming Osiris, no, they really believe that. Like that wasn't something that they were just saying just to say, that was how that was how their religion operated. And the pharaoh himself basically being the highest of priests, he himself is a religious figure, not just a religious figure, a god himself, right? So when you bring offerings to the god, right, be it let him be a real god or not, right? If he's posing as a god and in religious context, you're making offerings to him. Well, that's just what it is. So in death, if he's prepared items for him to take on his journey after death, those items sacrifice. They're not for you to use; they're for him. That's why they're in his grave. You follow me, man? Like you're overcomplicating the whole ceremony
hold
of
on, no, no,
of the
no, but
of.
but hold on, logic. I'm not
No,
disagreeing.
you know what I'm saying? Like you're adding all the moving
But
parts
hold
to it,
on,
and
logic.
it's
I'm not.
just
But hold on,
simply
logic.
a spirit.
I'm
It's a
not.
ritual.
I'm not disagreeing with you, but I don't want people to think that they thought that he was literally going to be using those things in that way. It what they were just so into it that they followed this thing down to the T. They didn't think that he would be
Joey,
eating food. They didn't
they're
think that he
shown
would.
using
They
it
didn't
on
think
the
that,
wall, Joey.
bro. You know what? You know what? I'm gonna say this to you. Logic. I like where you're going, but I still think that you should put together some sort of formal presentation and come on my show and let's talk about it. I don't mind talking, but I put a lot of work into this, and I'd appreciate if I felt like someone else put some work into it to be able to have the conversation. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. But I would like to see some sort of formal presentation.
No, I'm
And
you. I know you like to use that as like an escape, but you and I both know that you
but
will see the pharaoh
logic,
wearing his garb, right? He's
logic,
and holding the hook and the flail, and it means something.
crook,
It
crook.
means it
It's crook and
holding
flail.
holding the crook and the flail, right? It means something. There's a reason why he's holding it and no one else
Okay,
is holding it,
let
right?
me explain
There's a,
something
there's
to
a
you.
reason
Hold on,
why
hold
it's
on,
a
hold on,
reason
hold
why
on,
he's buried in the position he's buried in,
hold on,
and
logic, hold on,
everyone
logic,
else is buried. Go
hold
ahead.
on, logic. Let me explain something that you don't understand. All of that regalia and those depictions were depicted with the nature first. So he is imitating those beings. His crown, his garb, all of those symbols come from the Sebait, which means the wisdom teachings of his culture. He was not the first to do that. He is just imitating what was written before him. So those things always had spiritual significance, whether he was alive or not. The Ankh made him a high priest. The what you call a crook was a symbol of power or rulership. The flare was a symbol of him, of everyone being his servant. So those things always had significance before he died. But give me one
Right,
second. But hold
right.
on, give me
So
hold on. Give me 1 second. I want to show one figure that they had in the paper. Give me 1 second, right? Okay, hold on. Let me share my screen there. Oh shit, shucks. Oh, shucks. You know what? I'm doing stripping this, yes? Give me a second. Right. Can you see that?
Yeah, I see it.
Right. So this is a scribble scrabble drawing that they brought out saying they think that this is human sacrifice. This is just scribble scrabble. I don't know how they could tell you this is human sacrifice. There's no particular context to let them know that this is a human sacrifice. So this is some scribble scrabble that they're just putting out to make.
Reggie gave you this, didn't he?
No, they actually quoted this from the paper that I just read. This was one
Send
of
this
the
to me.
sources.
I want to read this too. Send this to me. Put it in my inbox thing.
Okay, I'm gonna send you the
I've
whole
I've
book.
seen this. I've seen this is a good source. I've seen this. The only other time I have seen this was Reggie, brother Reggie. By the way,
You know,
shout out to brother Reggie if he listening, huh?
he did show it, but I was looking for it, but the paper gave me the source. But
Yeah, I
to
mean,
me,
I
this is
have
bad.
no idea how to like decipher this and and
So how do
and
they know?
make.
So how do they know? They're making up shit because
Well,
they don't know either.
I don't pretend to read the language, so I'm not making any claims that I can do that.
Yeah, but there's no
So for
context.
me,
But there's
so
no
for
context to
me,
this.
right?
But
Are
there's
you
no
for
context to it.
oh, Joey? Are you familiar with the definition of sacrifice?
All of that is not my problem. I am not going there to tell you I don't know the definition. I'm telling you,
Oh,
no
look,
one
I'm
no
look.
one has
You can.
convinced
I'm
me.
not trying to
No
be.
one,
Look,
no,
I'm
no,
not
no,
trying
no
to
one has.
fight with you. I'm
The
just
paper,
asking you.
the
Are you
paper said
familiar with the definition?
yes.
That's all I'm asking. See, are you familiar with it? If not, I can read it. I have it pulled up. Would you like me to read it, or you want to Google it yourself? You heard me? All right, I'm gonna just read it. You put my password back in. My screen went black, so I'm gonna read it right quick, Joe. It's only gonna take a second. The definition says an act of slaughtering an animal or person or surrendering a possession as an offering to God or to a divine or supernatural figure. That's all you have to do. So, do we have a supernatural figure in this particular event? Oh, damn, uh, Joey lost his own connection on his own stream. I'm gonna see if he come back, man. I don't want to shut his show down. Yo, yo. Yeah, okay. I had to make sure it was still up there. I'm gonna give Joey a couple more seconds to come back up.
Sorry. I had some technical difficulties there.
all good, bro. I was holding it down for you while
All
you
right.
was gone.
I know you probably bad talk me too.
No, I didn't bad talk you, bro. I'm telling you, I'm not up to that. I think we can learn together now. This particular instance might be like I'm attempting to politely bring you up to speed on some of the arguments, but this one in particular, right? Like it's not that difficult. Well, I'm not gonna say it's not that difficult, but when you look at the word sacrifice, it's actually pretty broad. I'm gonna read it again since you just got back. It says an act of slaughtering an animal or person or surrendering a possession as an offering to God or to a divine supernatural figure. So, do we have a divine or supernatural figure? Yes, the Pharaoh, right?
You know,
Do
logic.
we have
Hold on,
do we
logic,
have possessions?
logic,
Yes. Do
logic,
we have
logic,
food? Yes. So
logic.
the people,
Logic.
go
Before
ahead.
you waste 15 minutes arguing, I agree with the definition, and I agree, but I'm just simply saying I am not convinced that people were killed as human sacrifices. That's all I'm saying. I'm not arguing
Right.
the
So if
definition. I'm not arguing the definition. They defined it in the paper. I just don't see any broad sweeping evidence in my view to say, yeah, man, I'm gonna jump on that and say, yeah, they was killing people to send
no,
them
no,
on
no,
with
no.
the fact. That's all I'm
No,
saying.
so I'm saying, so when you say that, you're describing a homicide, right? You're looking for someone to be like, this person
No, no,
strangled
no,
this
no,
person and they
no. That's not.
became, whatever.
No,
So I'm
no,
saying I'm
no,
saying
no, no,
that
no.
the
Hold on, logic. I am
okay,
saying to
go
you,
ahead, clean it up.
I know what a ritual sacrifice is, and I know what people getting killed in battle looks like. And I know people were have been they show pictures of people being smited, which is considered a sacrifice to the ruler of ancient Kemet. But there's also a nuance that some of those pictures may not have actually happened. They may be symbolic. All of those depictions are not historical depictions. So you have to know what is symbolic in terms of what never happened and what actually happened. So there's always a nuance to the argument. So just because you see someone being stomped on and smited, that doesn't mean that actually happened. It could just be a depiction of someone's mind. It doesn't mean that they sat there and watched somebody get smited and painted it. And in this and if I'm not mistaken, in this same paper it said that as well.
Right.
So
I mean,
I I,
so
I
you
am
don't definitively, you're right. So you're correct. You wouldn't definitively call the smiting scene itself a sacrifice because you don't know if it's symbolic or if it's a record of something that actually happened, right? Of course, if it
all right, you
actually
got me.
happened, then there would be no doubt that this would be ritualistic killing, right? But
Yeah. But you see,
since we don't
you see
know,
what
we won't say that it is, right? But you would have to understand how it could be, right? That's important because I'm not going to stretch that to say it has to be. I'm saying no, it could be based on this.
okay.
So when
But
I'm
logic,
so right. So then
but
we move. Go ahead, let's talk.
hold on. We need to understand the nuances of the culture before we just say everything we see depicted and everything we read is literal. We have to know the context of what we're reading. And I'm not saying it did or didn't happen, but you have to know because I got caught out there one time trying to prove people being burned alive, and my dumbass read a fictional document thinking it actually happened and embarrassed myself. Thankfully, the individual who I was talking to softened the blow, but I jumped through the window while it was closed and fell down and busted up my whole ass trying to prove something that I didn't even know was in a document that was actually
Did you just disappear again?
say that again.
Okay, you went out for a second. Now your voice was going in and out for a second. I thought you was dropping off on
Okay,
with your yeah. I can hear
so
you. You
here's what I'm
good?
gonna do. Here's what I'm gonna do for. Here's what I'm gonna do. Logic. I'm gonna send you the book. I'm gonna actually send you the papers that I have. I'm gonna give you an opportunity to decide if you want to actually formally put together some sort of presentation to come back on or what you want to do. You can inbox me and let me know if you want to do that.
I mean, what would I
Right?
be making a presentation on? It sounds like we agree. You said that they sacrificed. You just don't know. You don't know how they died, but you said that they were sacrificed.
No, no, no. I said I don't think that people were killed by other people. I'm convinced that people might have killed themselves. So
Right, and I'm
fully
saying that
I'm
that
not
would
fully on
still
board.
fit.
Nah.
No, that's fine. Even if they killed themselves, I'm saying that that would still fit into a sacrifice. They don't have to be killed
All
to
right,
be
all
a
right, all right.
sacrifice.
Okay, okay.
That's
Here,
why I gave you the definition. Yeah, they don't have to be killed. They can
okay,
surrender themselves as a sacrifice. Yes.
okay. All right, cool,
Willing sacrifice is what you would call
cool,
that.
cool, cool. All right, fair enough. But I'm not going to the extent that people were killed. I'm not convinced of that. And this little dinky thing they showed you here definitely is not convincing me of nothing. So if you're
Well,
okay, so if you're okay with me just accepting that people kill themselves, cool. But if you want to challenge me
yeah,
on
okay, I'm okay with that. No,
no, I'm
I'm not challenging you. I'm not. I'm
okay.
seeing where you're at. So since we agree that the
Halfway,
people are in the graves. No, no, no.
halfway,
This
halfway
is
up the road.
progress. This
It's
is
halfway.
progress. So
No, no,
so
hold on
so
now.
now so now we
Okay,
look, now we can move the conversation forward. We can
okay,
talk about how they died, right?
all
And
right,
so
cool.
now I'm explaining to you that if they don't need to be killed in order to be a sacrifice.
Okay, I'm cool with that, but I'm still letting you know I'm only halfway to where you are at this point. I'm
Oh,
not
that's
fully
fine.
there. I'm not fully there, which I'm giving you half a mark on it. But I want it. But I need more more convincing that people were actually killed. But if you don't want to talk about that, we can always come up with another topic that we could talk about because I would
No,
like you.
I'm saying so discussing how the people were killed in this particular context to me isn't as important because
All right.
you hold up, I'm explaining why. So you've seen by now that some of these graves had more than 300 some odd people in, and the archaeologists will tell you that these people were no older than the age of like 20, right? So you're talking about 300 plus people in their prime now in a grave, right? How do you get, so I'm asking you, can you think of any particular like thing that would cause 300 plus people of healthy age to just die at the same
Now,
time?
now, once again, I'm saying I'm still in the midst of my research, so I'm going to reserve some comments because I don't want to talk out of turn. I don't want to just be making random statements about these things. So I have other documents that I could read to maybe get a better view of the academic view of this thing. So I'm going to reserve my view on that for now. I might end up agreeing with you later, but at least you know if I agree with you, I did enough research to be able to agree with you, and I'm not just talking shit because somebody said something.
Well,
So if
well,
I have to,
I
so
am
if
not the arbiter of this truth. I am simply telling you what
no,
I have
I'm
read.
no, I'm okay with that, but I just want to do the proper research to be able to say, well, yeah, I was wrong, and then if I think I was wrong, I will publicly apologize and say, well, I did my due diligence to know that this was definitely something that they could prove. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying who's right and who's wrong. I'm giving you my view so far about what I've read and how I'm not convinced yet. That's what I'm saying. So let me continue, and then maybe after I'm done, I might agree with you. But I want to do this the right way. I don't want to just chat GPT. I want to go through scholars and people who know to be able to come to a proper conclusion, as opposed to just reading what someone else said or chat GPT
Keep
it.
it up. You going in a minute you'll just be repeating what I'm saying because you're reading.
Well,
See
guess what,
that
Logic?
that's the
No, no,
trick,
no.
right? See, like
No,
the
I don't
fact that you
mind
keep
that.
looking at
I don't
articles, right?
mind that. I don't mind that
No,
though. I don't
right,
mind.
you shouldn't.
I don't
You
mind
shouldn't
that.
mind that because
But
I'm
what I'm
only
saying
saying
is
what
this.
I've discovered through looking it up. I'm not saying
Okay,
stuff up from
right.
making it up.
Okay, I'm not arguing that you looked it up, but you had to read. I want to believe you read some reputable articles and you didn't just chat GPT it to come to that conclusion. And all
Mhm.
I'm saying is, let me read and come to the conclusion on my own. And if I repeat what you say, at least you could say Joey has done some research enough to know what the fuck he's talking about, and he didn't just agree because people are saying it. That's all I'm saying.
Mhm.
Let me go down that road, and if I'm proven wrong, I have no problem with saying I got proven wrong by proper source. That's what I'm saying. I don't I don't want to be the chat GPT guy. So
No, you're good.
let me go
So
let me go
my
down the road.
last question, then before I get off, right? So in your reading, have you seen someone offer an alternative explanation for this mass grave here?
Well, not yet. Not yet.
Not yet. Keep looking,
Not
bro.
yet.
That's all I can tell you.
All
Keep
right.
hope alive, bro.
Listen, thank you. Listen, thank you very much for coming on the platform. Hopefully, I'll
For
get
sure.
you to come back on, and we can have
Nah, I'll definitely come
wonderful
back.
conversation.
Definitely. I
All right,
told you
my friend.
I watched all the other videos you did on. I'm gonna be back. All right, big
All
dog. I'm all at you.
right, later. All right, people. I've been on here for almost an hour, so I'm gonna jump out of here, go and do what I have to do. I already showed you the one little dinky thing that they showed you here, which is not convincing. So I'm gonna go on ahead, get up out of here. I'll see you later, people. Peace out. Cuckoo!